Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Welcome, Senator.
Thanks for having me.
Your reaction, your thoughts to today?
Well, I mean, listen, this has got to be put in context. Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is going to use violence in order to try to intimidate people away from protests, that he is going to encourage violence when it is being used on his behalf. And this is a tried and true authoritarian tactic. What happened today is absolutely outrageous. We're all colleagues and friends of Alex's. He's acted heroically today to be able to recover from that moment and tell his story. He was doing his job. As he said in that interview, he was led into that room by members of the administration. The door was opened for him. He's standing there listening to a paid government employee lie to the American people, and he called out her lies. That's his job as the United States Senator. That's every single one of our jobs. And the fact that he was met with violence is an abomination. But, you know, listen, we'll see what happens here. Donald Trump is trying to set up a world in which people stay home, that they stop objecting to him, that they stop protesting because they fear they'll be met with the same consequence as Alex Padilla. I don't think that's how this is going to go down. I think you're going to see huge numbers this weekend protesting Donald Trump. I think they're going to be bigger than they would have been if today hadn't happened. I think the opposite as to what Donald Trump is gunning for is going to be the result here. I think there's going to be a loud response from the American people that they are going to continue to object to the thievery and the corruption, the illegality of this administration.
What is going to be the response within the United States Senate? You know, Senator Thune, he was on audio, the majority leader, saying that he spoke with Senator Padilla following the video, that he's also spoken with the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate. I will note Senator Padilla was asked by our colleague Jacob Soboroff in that interview, has he heard from any of his Republican colleagues? And he said he heard from Senator Sheehy and Senator Curtis. He did not note that he heard from Senator Thune, and at this point, I'm trusting Senator Padilla on the facts that he's giving us. So we know that the government has said they tried to present one set of facts. What is the United States Senate going to do? What are Senate Democrats demanding of their Republican colleagues?
Well, I mean, listen, there should be a Senate investigation, and we should have Republicans standing up for the right of a United States senator to do oversight. Because I don't know that you can put this genie back in the bottle. Once you let an administration get away with using violence to stop elected members of Congress from doing oversight and asking questions, that ultimately is going to come back and impact you, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican. Listen, we need to see this moment for what it is. We are on the midst of losing our democracy. And as a Senate, we have to understand that. Listen, there's still a debate that's playing out in the Democratic Party as to whether this is a normal political moment and you can just sort of deliver normal punches politically, or whether this is a moment that requires us to see the crisis as here and now and act in risk-tolerant ways, risky ways. Ways that meet the moment inside the Senate and outside of the Senate. And hopefully this is further proof to my colleagues that we got to stand up and stop collaborating, start fighting.
Let's hear from some of your colleagues. This is Senators Schiff, Murray, and Schatz just today on what happened to Senator Padilla.
I understand why Secretary Noem doesn't want to answer these questions, because she can't. But it is Alex Padilla's job to ask those questions and to demand those answers, and we are proud of him.
I have never come this close to having tears in my eyes as I speak to both sides of this aisle about this horrendous incident that occurred. We are a democracy, but we can lose that democracy.
This is the stuff of dictatorships. It is actually happening. I have never, ever, other than January 6th, been so outraged at the conduct of an administration.
So, Senator, those senators would seem to get it. Have you heard from any of your other Democratic colleagues who may be, as you said, less risk tolerant about whether or not today has shifted the window for them?
Well, I mean, I was on the floor, for about 4 hours tonight as about, half the Democratic caucus came down to, register our outrage. Listen, we need to be in the business of helping mobilize this country right now. Mobilization doesn't happen without resources. It doesn't happen without infrastructure. And typically, the political class, raises money and gets ready for the next election. Right now, we need to be focused on helping the citizens of this country stand up to what Donald Trump is doing. And so my hope is that this is a moment in which we are going to all recognize that in the Senate, we've got to train our resources. We've got to train our voices on this moment. There'll be plenty of time to fight the 2026 election. But right now, it's not clear that democracy is going to be around in 2026. So hopefully we will all be part of the protests that are happening over the course of the rest of this month, and that we will be supporting them with our dollars and our voices.
So we heard the Senate side. We've seen the Democrats come together. There's been crickets from most Republicans, except for two in the Senate. The House, Speaker Johnson came to a bank of microphones and had this to say about all of this.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate. You don't charge a sitting cabinet secretary, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. You can see it's a heated debate here. I'm not going to respond to that. Look, let me just, hold on, wait just a second. I think the American people can draw their own conclusions. They saw a senator acting like wildly inappropriate. I'll leave it at that. So,
What about the way he was treated by the neighbors?
what I saw.
In moments like this, you just, I'm lost for words, Senator. I just don't understand how feckless and spineless and degenerate in political character and humanity the leadership is right now. You can't look at this and think that this is a good thing for the Congress, let alone the country, right? You run the Congress. You can imagine, Senator, 4 years from now, a Democratic senator or a Democratic secretary of fill in the blank, having that happen to a Republican senator who's trying to do their oversight, because Lord knows they're going to be doing some oversight.
If we let this continue to go on, it won't be a Democratic anything.
This is a very good point. But you see what I'm saying? So help the country understand the difference here, because that's not normal. What we just heard is not a normal response. I don't care what your politics are. You saw a United States senator manhandled to the ground by federal law enforcement officers after he identified himself, who beforehand knew who he was because they escorted him in the room.
Yeah, first of all, let's just call out the repeated lies here, right? The administration says he didn't identify himself. He absolutely identified himself. Speaker Johnson just said he charged the secretary. We all watched the video. He didn't charge the secretary. He was led into the room by officials of the administration. But what we're hearing from Republicans is something really, really disturbing. They are essentially justifying the violence simply because they allege that he was impolite, right? That he was engaging in speech that was inappropriate for the moment. Okay, you can have that opinion, but that is not illegal.
Right.
In fact, the history of the United States is replete with all sorts of protest that has been impolite. The revolution itself was impolite.
Right.
And so the idea that if you raise coarse objection to the regime, you are going to be thrown to the ground and handcuffed, right? It violates the very foundational idea of this country, and it absolutely will come back and boomerang on Republicans. If that becomes the norm, then it becomes the norm regardless of who's in the White House, a Republican or a Democrat. That's my worry, and that's what we have to communicate to our Republican colleagues, so we hear, more of our Republican colleagues speaking up on behalf of the Constitution.
These deportations, the whole reason that this even happened today is because the United States, and I'm going to keep saying the government, because people have to understand that the government is doing this to them, that the government is ratcheting up the attention and the pressure and the rhetoric and the temperature by sending masked armed agents out into communities across the country, deploying the National Guard against the sitting governor of California's wishes, and literally just deporting everybody. At this point, if you ain't got no papers, you might be on the chopping block. But today, the president had this to say, and I want to play that for you and juxtapose it with Tom Homan. If we don't have it, I will read what the president said. Let me read it. Our farmers, this is what the president said today. He also posted this, but he said, our farmers are being hurt badly by, we have it. Let's play it.
Our farmers are being hurt badly by, they have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be, great. And we're going to have to do something about that. We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back. We can't do that to our farmers, and leisure too, hotels. We're going to have to use a lot of common sense on that.
I said 1,000 times that aperture will open, and I said, if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. We will enforce immigration law. For those in the country legally, take advantage of CBP One Home app. Put your affairs together and go home.
Senator, I hear what the president is saying, but I also hear Tom Homan. His words mean nothing if the policy doesn't change.
Yeah, listen, they're chasing agricultural workers through the fields. So Donald Trump can try to sugarcoat the policy, but they are absolutely going after the workforce on our farms, the workforce in our leisure industry. They're going after individuals who are actually here with pending asylum claims. They are acting illegally every single day of the week. And what Donald Trump did in Los Angeles was the opposite of try to keep the peace. He's sent the National Guard in there to intentionally create a fight, right? He was looking to create a pretext in order to do what he has always wanted to do, to impose some form of martial law. And pay attention to the military order to deploy the National Guard. It was not exclusive to Los Angeles. It didn't create the legal foundation to deploy them only in Los Angeles. It was a nationwide order, meaning that at any time, on a moment's notice, if there's a protest that the administration doesn't like in Tulsa or in Boston or in Hartford or in Miami, the National Guard can be in your community in a heartbeat because they are ultimately looking for some form of quasi-military control. He's been talking about it since his first term. So just understand, this National Guard deployment isn't about anything except trying to pick a fight.